how do men express and feel and express emotions, right? So I've got all that we'll be dealing with. We've got men's mental wellness, because we understand that a mentally well man is a fit man who's able, when the mental is off, that throws everything else off in the household, in the body, and everything else. Then there's men's physical wellness. There's men's, and I've got different things that we'll talk about in that. Exercising, right? Body in motion. Excuse me. Doctor's visits, eating, drinking, all these different things, and how that's fuel for the body. And so we'll talk about a lot during the month of physical wellness, in men, and I'll have different guests who will be on throughout this year, who will help me to deal with these different topics and subjects. So it won't always be me, right? We'll talk about men's spiritual wellness, the importance of a man in the family dynamic, men helping men, and so much more. All right, so much more. I've got quite a few topics here that we're going to deal with. All right, but for today, let's go ahead and jump into today's man to man topic. All right, and today's man to man topic is this. It's entitled, rather, "Can you handle the totality of a man?" Can you really handle the totality of a man? You say, well, what do you mean by that? You know, there are so much, or there is, rather, let me use proper grammar and proper English here. There is so much as it relates to men that we often hide, that we keep to ourselves, that we don't share with everybody. Not every person gets every bit of us, right? To our mother, our mother gets a certain bit of us. Our wife gets a certain, or a girlfriend, whoever, gets a certain bit. The children, there is a little piece of us that we keep reserved from everybody, because, as men, we learn how to compartmentalize. We learn how to compartmentalize, right? There are thoughts that men think. Let me take it a step further. There are thoughts that men think that they don't share with everybody, and especially, let me just say, a spiritual man, right, such as myself, or a man who's in church, or pastors, all that. We don't share every thought that we have with everybody, because not everybody could handle that thought, and we worry about the folks judging us and all of that because of our thoughts. Listen, let me help you understand, and see this. For the better part of about 7 years, 6, 7 years, I have been intentionally and purposefully studying men, watching men, learning from men. Trying to understand even better myself. Right. For all of my life, I've been trying to understand what it means to be a man. For all of my life, I've been working and endeavoring at trying to be the very best man that I can be. But I've come to understand that not everybody in my life is able to handle the totality of who I am and the way that I am. If I were the same way that I am at home, right? If I eh, you know if, if I was that same way here at the radio station, here on the radio, things would be a whole lot different. It's not so much that I am perpetrating when I come here on the radio, but there is a certain way that I can be at home with my wife that I can't be in the public, and it's like this for every man. Can you handle the totality of a man? Can you handle if a man decided to share with you everything that's going on with him? If he decided to share every, like there have been times, and I'm just going to share this with you. There have been times where I have, began to kind of tell my wife little different things that are going on with me, the little things that are happening with me, from just, bowel movements to whatever else, because I wanted her to be informed what was happening with my body and everything, because I know she'll keep me on target and on track. And there have been times, and then it's not, I'm not putting her down or anything, but she's like, "Ooh, I don't want to know that. I don't want to hear that." And that is the issue that a lot of men face. They feel as though not every person wants to hear or can handle everything about who he is, right? They feel as though not every person can handle the thoughts that he has about the folks at his job, and dare not tell his friends some of the thoughts that he has about them. Because listen, we can be friends with another man, but yet still have some issues or some reservations about some of the things that he says and or does. But in front of him, we just kind of like chuckle, maybe go along with it, you know. But that's not who we are. So, if a man ever decides to open up to you, if a man ever decides to share with you a little bit about what's going on with him, can you handle it? Can you handle it? I'm telling you, there's so many. Um, there's so much that relates to or that that goes into being a man. You know, one of the things that we're going to talk about, maybe we'll deal with this next month, but it is as a man, we have to learn how to be as light as a feather, but as hard as a rock. That's the complexity of a man. We've got to learn how to be gentle and loving and caring with our wives, with our daughters, with our mothers, with our, but then with the fellas, we got to be just, oh yeah, bro, hammers. Like we got to be strong. And that is a part of the totality of a man. If a man were to share with you his rough side, right? His very raw side of the thoughts and the things that he and his boys talk about. I'm talking to women even at this point. Could you handle it? During this man to man series, one of the things that I want to really do, and today, like I said, is more of an intro, um, and it's more of a just kind of getting your eyes open and aware, right? Sort of deal. But one of the things that I want to do is I want to help us to understand, help us to understand men a little bit better. You know, one of the issues that we have as we talk about the totality of a man, there's so many issues that men face simply because, and especially in the African American community, there's so many issues that we face as men simply because here's where it originates and here's where it begins. We don't have a clear depiction or a clear picture of what it means for a man to be a man. We don't quite understand or know or have a picture of when does a boy become a man. I understand what the Bible tells us that when I was a child, I act like a child, I spoke as a child, and all that. But then, when I became a man, I put away childish things, right? But where is it? What happens that shifts and causes a boy to become a man? And as we look at the totality of a man throughout this month, that's one of those things that I want to deal with, right? Because see, here's what I understand, and I've got about maybe 4 or 5 more minutes in this before I have to shut it down. But here's one of the things that I recognize and that I realize is that when you go to different cultures, the Jewish culture, they have a ritual that helps a boy to understand when he's transitioned into manhood, right? He has his bar mitzvah. If you go and you look at some of the indigenous cultures of the world, they have different rites of passages and things that they do that help a boy to know that he is now transitioning into manhood. And as men, especially again in the African American community, what is it that happens for us that leads us and lets us know that we are men? I've asked this question of so many men, and the question so many times has come back, or the answer has come back. Oh well, when I first slept with a young lady, I knew I was a man. When I first got a young lady pregnant, I was a man. When I got married, oh that's when I got my own house, when I got my own bills, oh I knew I had become a man. When I moved out of my mama's house, I even had one preacher, right, one man who told me that he knew he was a man when he stopped getting whoopings. He was still fairly young, but his mom. He asked his mom one day. He said, "Mom, why are you still whipping me? Why? Why did I catch a whipping for that?" She said, "Because the choices and the decisions that you make are foolish, and foolishness is bound in the heart of a child. And I'm going to drive out that foolishness until you become a man. He said that was the last whooping he ever caught, because then he began to reason and to think differently. It, where is it in our culture? I'm dealing with the African American culture now, that a boy can know he's become a man. And as we look at the totality of a man this month, I want us to think on that. Think on that. We've got so many grown men, as we would refer to them, because of their age, who still maybe haven't transitioned into manhood, who are still possibly in some part of adolescence, because there was no clear, distinct mark or era that said, now I'm a man. Can you handle the totality of a man? Within every man, there is a boy. But what do you do when there's more boy than man? That's some of the stuff that I want to deal with this year, right? That's some of the stuff we're going to deal with as we talk about man to man, and even the totality of a man. Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be tough. Maybe it's gonna be good though. I want to help us. I want to help us because again, the men, we have to learn, and this is the other thing. I'm gonna close with this, and I've got 1 minute left. All right, 1 minute left. Men, we have to learn, because we are men, and because we know and understand ourselves a little bit. To some degree, we understand ourselves. We have to begin to be a bridge, a safe harbor, a safe place for other men. We've got to allow other men to be vulnerable around us. We've got to allow other men to share with us what's going on with them. Because when a woman can't handle it, at least my boys ought to be able to handle it. At least my partners ought to be able to handle it. I got one or two men in my life who I can show the fullness of who I am. I can be as vulnerable and cry and sensitive, whatever. You know, not every man gets that. But I want to encourage you, brothers, as we deal with can you handle the totality of a man, find a man. Find a man who you can relate to and talk with and open up to. Find a safe harbor, a safe place. And I'm not talking on a, like y'all got to be in some sort of intimate relationship. No, no, no. I mean, just as a man, listen, my grandfather, God bless him, God rest him, had men like Brother James Ford who he could go to, right? My grandfather had folks like Brother Vincent, right, who he could go to and talk to, and who he could be vulnerable with and share, right? And and they did it just simply over coffee, sitting outside on the front porch, just talking as men. They could talk about their wives. They could talk about, whatever was going on. Find you a safe place. Find you a man, and y'all can just get you some coffee. You know, if you smoke cigars, get y'all some cigars and sit back and just talk. You've got to find you a safe place. You've got to find somebody who can handle the totality of the man that is you. All right? All right. I've went a little bit over my time for today, but join me next week. Join me next week. We're going to go a little bit deeper into this topic of can you handle the totality of a man. I want to deal with, we're going to deal with a little bit more of what it looks like in a man's world. In a man's world. Oh, yeah. I'm going to help y'all understand. I'm going to help some of the ladies and folks who listening, help you understand what a man's world looks like. That's our topic for our subject for next week. A man's world. Can you handle the totality of a man? This has been Man to Man.